Coming to you from the Malice TV studios in Troy, Michigan, this is the Malice Cast.
All right, welcome back to the Malice Cast, the official podcast of Malice HR. I'm LJ.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we've got a ton to talk to you about, but before we do, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, as well as our pages on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Every time you like and subscribe, we give a referral bonus to a candidate that refer a friend. Wow.
We've actually got a referrals tab on our website that you should jump on there and refer a friend and get some money for it.
Yeah, let's all make money together by helping our friends and family. Great idea, Sarah. Wow.
Thank you.
You're brilliant in so many ways. So, Sarah, what are we talking about? But first, why don't we introduce our table mates, our friends?
Yeah, so we brought some new friends with us today. This is Heather. She's an account manager. And Nick is a talent acquisition specialist. They're the right people to bring good conversations to this table about communication. Yeah, we've found, we've had some conversations recently where we've talked about people getting new roles where they're, all of a sudden in charge of the people that they used to work right next to and what that means for them. How do you step in and kind of take over the responsibility, but with authority and be able to hold your people accountable? It's kind of a tricky thing sometimes. So, we just wanted to kind of get some different perspective, maybe give some tips and tricks about how to effectively communicate with the people around you when you all of a sudden take over.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to start off with Heather here because Heather, now you're in an account management role now. So you actually have people that come and report to you, and then you also previously weren't in that role, so you were actually reporting to somebody else. How would you say, your communication style has changed based on your position?
I don't necessarily think that it my personality didn't change, but you have to understand that there's a thin line dealing with your friends versus who is reporting to you.
Right.
And I still like to think that you can still have fun as long as your job is getting done, but we have to understand that there's still a task that needs to be completed. Mm-hmm. And as long as they understand that and they understand that they're reporting to you with a deadline, then I think it can all be copacetic.
Right.
Yeah, we're still going to talk about House of the Dragon in the morning, but we're going to make sure we get a bunch of stuff done throughout the day.
Let me know how that new hire went.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and life is a lot more fun when everyone's getting the job done, and you can enjoy work and the environment and the atmosphere a whole heck of a lot more when we're all completing our tasks and are aligned with our goals. Yes. Nick, now you are relatively new into the staffing world, but you are communicating with your team lead, and also you're communicating with a lot of candidates and contract employees. How would you say your communication style has changed or been effective based on the current job you're in and the current role you're in right now?
Coming from a labor force into this, it was brand new. So had to kind of learn how to be the boss in that situation, because it really does come down to I am getting this person a job, and then I'm not the guy getting the job anymore. So I had to kind of switch roles there. So I know how to keep it personal and try to see their side of things, but at the same time, like Heather was saying, I am looking to get you a professional job. So
the employer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
it's still important, I think, to build relationships because you still have that connection. You still want to have that connection with the employee or with your colleagues. But, and it makes them have that connection with you.
I agree.
Well, and I know, and honestly, it doesn't matter what industry, what business, what you're selling, what service you're providing. Everything is based on relationships. Absolutely. We're not necessarily the biggest staffing company in the world, in the state, but it's those relationships which allow us to keep propelling our business forward. And it's that ability to always be there, that customer-centric focus that we have. So they know that they can communicate it with us on a regular basis. So, but I don't know about you guys, but first off, I just want to go over pet peeves.
Okay, we're going negative right out the gate.
We're going straight negative. Okay. All right. Yes. So my biggest pet peeve for communication, I don't know about you guys, but when someone comes up to me and they're talking and they are very quiet and they're looking at me and they're whispering and I'm like, what are you saying right now? I'm a loud person, sometimes a little too loud, some people might say. And when someone comes up to me and it's just a total inverse way compared to how I communicate, you need to speak up. You need to be direct. You know, that's my big thing. How about you, Sarah? You seem like someone who communicates. What's your pet peeve?
I do communicate, yes. My pet peeve is the passive aggression. Just say what you mean and don't be a jerk about it. You know, whatever it is you got on your mind, just be direct and bring it to the table and we can resolve it rather than, well, if I stop it right now. Right. So maybe a little too direct at times, but I would rather have it that way than that. Well, if you feel like, just tell me what you need.
Right.
So, yeah. What about you, Heather?
Kind of running around the point. Like if I ask a question and you have 20 things to say, but I only need to hear one of them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Just get to the point.
I'm kind of on the same page with you on that one.
Yeah.
Like we know what you want to say, and it's okay to say it.
Yeah.
So just let me know.
Yeah.
And we'll work around it.
Going for no,
Exactly.
right? You know, and I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with is saying no or letting somebody down, you know, and if you preface everything by saying, hey, it's okay if you're not interested, or hey, it's okay to say no, I think that kind of alleviates some of that anxiety, maybe some of that stress, and it allows you to have a better relationship and a better better way of communicating with others, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I usually repeat the same thing like 3 times in different words. So gonna just
I think sometimes
That's weird.
so yeah, we got a little negative there. So why don't we flip to the positive side of things here? What are some good tips that you would give somebody initially about being a more effective communicator?
Try not to take things personal. You know, if somebody communicates with you in a way that just kind of rubs you the wrong way, maybe have a conversation about it or understand that they might just communicate differently. You know, we talked about different personality types in a previous podcast.
Yep.
DISC, it being one of them. There's also introvert versus extrovert. We can go on and on about that. But, you know, just because somebody happens to be a D person where they just straight to the point and off with it, they're trying to get things done for you rather than to sit there and talk it out.
Right.
Nick, have you run into anything since you've been here? Because you've had a couple different situations with different managers. What style works best for you for communication?
I'm like a good go with the flow type of person. So I do try to match all the energy. So I previously had a D supervisor kind of team lead, and I knew how to approach that situation. At first, it took some time to get used to not take it personally. I just had to adapt to that. So really just kind of figuring out that person, not mimicking them, but just knowing how to approach the conversation, where it goes, if something goes wrong, how it's going to happen or how it's going to react, and just kind of go from there.
Staying ahead of it.
Exactly. And then on the opposite side of things, having like a new team lead, that's kind of my assessment, which I think is a S.
Yeah, that
or
sounds
C,
about right.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like a go with the flow.
You look very S to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I kind of get in where I fit in, essentially. But now I know how to talk to her. But I like that effectiveness more, just kind of open communication, not like stressing, but at the same time, it did get me to get my work done.
Yeah.
So I worked pretty well with it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Now, Heather, do you have a tip for how to effective communicate? And then also, when you're communicating with candidates, and this could probably go for you as well, when they're going in for an interview, is there anything that you guys are mentioning to these people? Like, hey, you know, make sure that you highlight this or you do that. I mean, is there anything along those lines that maybe you're giving advice to active candidates right now?
Oh, absolutely. You don't want to ever speak negative in an interview in general, especially about your old employers, anything along those lines. Those are big no-nos.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
dress professionally. You know, you just want to communicate like what to expect and make sure they do some research on the company that they're going for.
Right.
These are all things that can, prep them, communicate, to be able to communicate better with the client.
right. Well, and I think you kind of hit on something there, being positive and not being pessimistic, nobody wants to work with a negative Nancy, and that's why Andrew's doing so well. He's the happiest guy I've ever met in my entire life.
It's uncanny.
I can't even have a bad day here because I got Andrew Andrew running around, but
I was just trying to have a bad day.
yeah, I wanted to pout today, nope, not today. But yeah, being positive and having a glass half full approach to communication can get you a long way as well.
Absolutely.
So,
and sometimes with communication, even just listening is a big part of communication. Sometimes
Oh gosh.
Great.
and employees that may be upset about something and they don't even necessarily want you to do anything about it. They just want you to listen.
yeah, you know what? And that's a great point. I should have even put this on. Listening is probably
man, I wrote it.
the
I
most.
wrote it down.
Did you really? See, more prepared. Oh my gosh, you need the highlighter. I'm gonna start highlighting stuff here. No, that's a great point though, because communication is really only 50% of you talking. It's the other 50% is listening. And how to be an effective listener. And there's plenty of times you'll go and you'll bring up a problem or talk to somebody and it's like you're looking, the eyes are glazed over and, I just imagine, I got a monkey and a little tambourine in their head. They're not even listening to a single thing you're saying.
I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah. See, case in point,
Yeah, and sometimes they get upset with you, or it's not that they get upset with you. They're upset about something and they just want to talk, and you just listening, it fixes the problem. It wasn't even what they came to you about. It just fixes the problem by listening. So, I mean, all valid points about listening. It's being a huge part of communication. Who knew?
I like to look at it almost like I'm their agent, and I'm like, just kind of tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I can help you communicate that in a proper way.
Right.
So
Right.
Just don't keep it professional, but tell me kind of.
What are you looking
I'm like
for?
I'm a prep before the interview. It's like a phone screen before getting the big job.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think another big part of that too is being able to identify what type of personality type that this person is and what kind of communication style. We have a very diverse group of communicators here at the office. We have some people that are very quiet, some people that are very loud, some people that are kind of just walking the line in the middle, and you have to communicate with them in a different way for each person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that, as long as you understand that we're all on the same team and you can have those conversations, like for instance, hey, you're talking way too quiet, got to bring it up a couple notches, and then everybody's on the same page again. When really they meant nothing bad by it. You don't mean to be upset by it, but it's just a thing. But being able to hash that out and get on the same page, I mean, it took you and I a minute to really gauge each other with just how we communicate in a podcast, let alone manager to employee or whatever. So, and I also think, one of the core factors to good communication and good relationships is, in psychology, you learn about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the number one need anybody has is to feel safe. They need to feel safe that, with walls around them and food and all those things, but to feel like you've got their back. And usually that kind of, if they feel like that you've got their back, they're going to have yours. And it's just a very symbiotic relationship. It's when people start feeling like they're shut out and, well, what's going on that I don't know about? I mean, you don't necessarily need to know about everything, but bring them to the table and say, hey, this is going on. This is why we're changing to this new program. This is why we're not doing it this way anymore, because change is scary. We all know that. Right. But if you can communicate why the change is there, you're more likely to get their buy-in. They're more likely to feel better about it. And it's a quick, okay, let's move on to the next thing, rather than just, well, I'm not doing it this way. And we can avoid all of that just by communicating and understanding. Right. Get people involved in things as much as they need to be.
It's like leveling up together.
Yeah.
Just keeping that guy at the same pace, because I don't know what to do here.
Right.
I don't know what to say.
That's right.
Totally. And, I think a good strategy for, an employee who's trying to communicate with a manager or is maybe confused about what's going on is trying to not only identify what the company's goals are, but then align your goals with the company, and I think that's a huge part. And if you don't know what the company's goals are, don't be afraid to ask questions, and figure out how can my piece of the puzzle fit into this organization? And, that just goes hand in hand with being open and having honest communication about your job and what the expectations are. Mm-hmm. Right.
I think this actually goes both ways. So bear with me. I think that there's being open to and accepting of constructive criticism, both as a manager and as the employee. It's not just how I need you to to communicate with me, but things that you could be doing to communicate better without, again, going back to taking it personal. So Heather, have you it's easy to say with clients, right? Like you just always try to get on their level of things, but like, how do you do that with recruiters where you bring them up to your level with things?
I think you have to manage expectations from the get-go, especially when we get a new order. I like to be specific, like, hey, this is how many we need by this date. These are the shifts. This is what you should be discussing with people. And I always think, I've been here for 10 years now, and I always think, I tended to succeed because I was always very upfront with even, our employees and everything. Like, look, I'm not going to mislead you by any means. This is what it is. This is the information that I have. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything just to get you to accept a job, right? I don't want to mislead anybody. So I think being straightforward and having that, all the information up front to someone, recruiters or employees, and then being able to communicate that as well, I think manages those expectations, and you're going to have better success if you just straight from up front give them, this is what I want, this is what I need. Do you have any questions? And like if they don't know what to do, and they have to be able to come back to you and know that your door is open.
Right.
Do you feel comfortable in your role? Like, I hate to use criticism, but almost
constructive criticism,
constructive criticism, correction, things like that. Do you feel comfortable saying that to candidates and employees alike?
Well, and then and honestly, and not to just cut everything up, but I mean, and how do you do that?
Right.
I think that's a big part of it. I always heard like a compliment sandwich, like, hey, you're really great at this. This kind of sucks, but hey, this is also really great.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing really great. I see a great amount of candidates, but hey, make sure that they know that there's going to be overtime or things like that. Yeah. It gets touchy sometimes. You want to make sure you're not offending anybody because just because you do something a certain way doesn't mean everyone doesn't have the same style, right?
Yeah.
So you have to definitely tiptoe certain times or whatever, but I think for the most part, as long as you communicate with someone what's expected, for the most part they go along with it.
Right. Yeah. Nick, are you constructively criticized often?
Yes.
Exactly what I was going to ask him, actually.
I would say, yeah.
And you take it pretty good then, eh?
I would like to say so, hopefully, in my opinion.
I haven't seen any holes in the walls or anything.
Behind closed doors. I don't know what people are saying. Like, he took that terribly. But I think it helps, honestly. It just makes you a better person.
Right.
So
but you have to be open to it.
Exactly.
You have to be in a position where you want to get better and be able to take that and turn it into something, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You got to want it. And with wanting it comes with fixing your, because nobody's perfect except you, LJ.
I try.
But nobody's perfect. So you got to be able to be able to take it and understand
I'm
that.
not even sure if I effectively answered your question.
You absolutely did. I just brought you back to it a little bit.
I think a lot of that goes with the constructive criticism. Being able to talk openly is falls into, building trust and team building and how important those things are. We've had a pretty consistent team here now for, probably the last 8-9 months, where, in an industry where you have people coming and going often, I feel like we haven't had anybody leave in a long time,
Yeah. And kudos to this group, man. There's some work ethic in that office out there.
Right.
And for such young kids and things like that. Yeah. You lead the game in it. Yeah. There's so much. It's nice to see the work ethic and talk about going back to old podcasts, talking about the generational differences. We have everything from Gen Z to boomers out there, and everybody has got a strong work ethic. So, but I think that, you kind of you touched on it just a little bit, the team building part. So it's not just about the criticism. It's not just about like, you're a real jerk. It's, being able to celebrate successes together and even people who don't necessarily always work together on certain projects or whatever, being able to say like, Nick, I heard you got that fill over there at the place and you did a really good job. Awesome. Right. And we do that as a management team. We sit down and talk about the people who have knocked it out of the park recently.
Right.
And then we go out and say stuff so that everybody is aware. So you're not just baby in a corner over there thinking I'm doing okay. And everybody can be aware of the things that you're doing great.
Everyone's pretty happy too. Like no one seems to be bitter about somebody else's success. Like if I had a hot week, like a hot streak, and someone was down, or if I was having a bad week and a coworker of mine's having a really good week, I'm like, man,
you're not going to take it personal.
Yeah, you're doing great. I'm trying to get on your level. So I think that's what everyone's kind of feeding off of.
Yep, I would agree.
Right. Well, and I think it's all about encouraging a culture of, like you said, celebrating success, but also learning from one another. If you've got somebody who's doing well, that's the person that you should be going up to and saying, hey, how are you being so successful? And I think what was really cool is, over the last couple of weeks, we've done vision boards, where everybody has all their, some of it's personal, some of it's professional, but you lay out all your goals, you put it on a board, you cut out pictures and everything. And then once you've completed the board, you stand up and you announce to everybody on the team, or your group that you're with, what your goals are and you say it out loud, and how many times have you heard about if you got a goal or you got something you want to, you say it out loud, because we're all going to hold each other accountable to achieving those goals. So I think that falls right in place with it as well.
I noticed nobody had to hold me accountable for that fantasy football championship.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna keep reliving this.
Just one of them.
Yeah,
Nick did get the other.
Yeah, holy cow.
First year.
I know. I 2 out of 3 years the champion. We're gonna be calling you Sarah Brady here pretty soon. He is single.
Yeah, it is a dynasty in the making.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm shaking in my fantasy boots right now. All right. So we've kind of hit on some, employee to manager, some team building. Now, how about manager to employee? I mean, what's the saying? Everybody hates their boss, but they probably wouldn't if they knew how to effectively communicate, right?
No. Yes.
That was the right answer was yes. Okay.
Yes, LJ.
Yes. So I think being in a managerial role, though, you have to really identify people who, their needs versus people who are just needy. Yeah,
I knew you were going there.
And how do we do that? Is
you tell me. You're the one with the manager chops.
It was more of a rhetorical question because I'm going to answer it. I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe asking the same question a couple times to get it right. But if you are asking a question on every single thing of every single process after you've been trained, I think you're going to be in sort of some tough luck there.
Yeah, I think you get to
tough love.
Yeah, maybe. I think you get to a point then where they just people just want attention. Yeah, and then
please refer to my last eat.
Yeah, or my last. Yes,
yeah. That's the best answer.
Right. Yeah, and how do you separate those people? How do you help someone who's needy and turn them into just a regular person with needs?
Well, I think you could align their needs with the company's and touch back on that.
I like this part. It's so stupid.
This is fun for me.
Yeah, I know. It's very fun. Very fun. Okay. I think another big part for managers is empathy. Having empathy, being able to really put yourself into someone else's shoes and identify what the problems they're having and come up with solutions based on that. And I think so many times in today's world, you'll see, managers or bosses who just don't necessarily care.
Right. I was going to say that. Yeah.
They just don't care. And, I've always been a big believer is you take care of your employees and they will take care of you.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on empathy in the workplace?
Well, I think it goes to, what we were saying about being able to communicate with each other and align your goals. I mean, it's all in the same vein of being able to understand that even though my age, my role, my goals, my social, whatever it is, might be completely different, I can support you and yours. Right. Because one, I care about you, and two, we don't all have to be the same. But to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, whether it's a struggle, something happened at home, and I'm just not doing my best right now, rather than coming at them like, well, you suck, then it could be like, hey, I know your work ethic. You're going to bounce back from this and everything's going to be fine. What can I do to help? Exactly.
Right. Yes. Well, and I think it's, I'll be honest, I think it's a little bit easier for me because, or for myself, because I'm dealing with the same people consistently. Like I've topped in everybody's shoes so many times, I'm basically Foot Locker at this point. Whereas you, Heather and Nick are dealing with a variety of people with a variety of needs. I mean, at least it's consistent. I know what Sarah needs. I know what kind of empathy I need to provide with her on a daily basis. That ain't changing too much. So I know for me it's easy because I'm dealing with the same people. How are you guys? You guys are dealing with different people all the time. Do you ever get overwhelmed with the amount of shoes that you need to step inside of?
I choose happy. I mean, I think everybody gets overwhelmed at a certain point. But again, you just got to know the different personalities. Take a deep breath if it comes to that situation. And be like, hey, maybe they're struggling for whatever reason. See what you can do. If there's a way you can make it easier or something that you can do to help them get out of that funk.
Yeah.
Right. I would say the same thing. I'm on the opposite end of things of just kind of being the employee here. Yeah. So it is overwhelming. And then a lot of you guys are really helpful with, like you guys said, the work ethic is here. So it's like, you're doing good. You're having a down week. Let's figure out what's going on. And then
you'll get there.
Yeah. Pick it back up.
You'll get there.
The roller coaster. That's something you told me like early on. And it helped.
All day long. I always recruiting. It's an emotional roller coaster.
Oh yeah.
There's highs and there's lows. For sure.
Yep. You can have a good and bad day all on the same day, multiple days in a row. That's just part of it. And I think really from a manager's perspective, and I think, or maybe you should have started with this. I think the biggest key is making sure that the people that work for you or work with you understand the big picture. We hit on this earlier, the big picture and what the goals are and what the expectations are. If you're hiring somebody, hey, listen, like you said, this is the shift. This is what you're expected to do. This is when you're expected to be here. This is how you're expected to wear. But if you don't outline those expectations or outline that vision with the people you're working with, you can't ever expect them to succeed, right?
Yeah.
Another one of my little cliche sayings is you don't want to put a square peg in a round hole. Like I'm not going to place someone just for the sake of placing someone. I want it to be a fit for everybody.
Right.
Agreed.
I've had one where like I talk to somebody and once I do like a end of phone call review and I was like, man, it almost sounds like I was telling him not to take the job the way I was breaking the things down because it was kind of a hard job, but this guy was really used to that field and was like really okay with it. But like I had to like overtime a lot on call.
Well, and for both your sakes though, I mean, it's better to lay it all on the table because you don't want them accepting a job and then not liking it. And I think the thing that's even bigger is I don't want somebody quitting a current job that they're working at for a job they don't like. Thing. I mean, you think of the process of like, okay, they've made a permanent decision now, and if they don't like what the job that you're putting them in, you're setting everybody up for failure essentially. And I think a big a part of being a good manager is having kind of an open door policy, having an open call policy. I'm sure you tell your candidates as I tell people who work here, if you need something, give me a call, or if you need something, come in my office. Being open to that communication and not isolating yourself on management island where nobody can get to you. Right. I think is huge as well.
Yeah, and you feel it makes an employee feel appreciated when they know you're just a step away to answer a question or help with a thing or just unload. I don't know what to do here and help them through that.
Well, and I think that's something, and not to toot my dad's horn a little bit here, but something that I've always admired about him is every day he walks in, he's a CEO, he walks in and goes and greets everybody, talks to them a little bit, says, hey, how you doing? And, I think that goes a long way because he could easily just walk to his office, shut the door. Then, we occasionally hear from him, but having that open line. Yeah. Right. What about setting expectations? I know we kind of hit that, but something that we talked about, the phrase, this is just the way it is. Yes. That's something that has been brought up where understandably some settings, if you're in a GM facility and they talk about safety, this is just the way it is. Like you better just accept it. But if we're talking about specific policies or certain aspects of the job, we tend not to just say this is the way it is. Right. I think that goes more into explaining, why the things are the way they are. Right.
Sure. And it's also having, not doing that is having a little bit of empathy. And the first thing in here that comes to my mind is, some people like to go off by themselves and make phone calls because that's how they feel more comfortable, or, they're distracted by, easily in the background or whatever, and not mandating that they're at their desk for hour to hour, windows, but saying like, hey, whatever helps you do your best work. I mean, that's empathizing with them just as much as anything. And we've seen, at least in my experience, it provides them with, I mean, not everybody thrives in it because there's always going to be one or two that are just going to be like, all right, cool, I'm going to go watch TikTok on my phone. Right. But for the most part, you know, that shows pretty quickly. But other people just feeling like, okay, I can breathe. I'm not listening to other phone calls. I can focus. And so it's nice. And then, you know, speaking of which, you know, not calling people out in front of everyone in a negative way, like ring the gong thing or whatever, but and celebrate and celebrate wins, but don't just call somebody out and tell them they're a piece of garbage in front of the rest of the room. I mean, everybody deflates when you do that.
Oh, yeah. So. Yeah. So for this next part, I want to go over the 7 deadly sins of effective communication. So,
communication.
Yes. Yes.
I was wondering where you're taking this podcast.
Not talking about any of your sins, Sarah. That's for sure. So just go through them real quick. Sin 1, focusing on weaknesses. Number 2 would be disregarding professional development. Number 3, being unapproachable. Number 4, being uninvolved. Number 5 is being too involved. Fine
line.
It's like we're trying to find that involvement area there. And then sin number 6, exhibiting pessimism, and number 7, using passive aggressive communication. So hats off to us first off for really hitting on a lot of these.
We really did.
Yeah, we really
Good
are,
job, guys.
Any of those specifically stick out to you? Anything you want to add to those sins?
I like the unapproachableness.
Yeah.
It's like if you're unapproachable, I'm not going to feel comfortable talking to you, and it's just going to trickle down into my work, and then where do we go from there?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like running into a wall.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I would say, I think we were talking about where to go here. Not being uninvolved and being too involved.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, I got this job, go fill it. But it's not like every 2 seconds, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? You got to trust people to have a work ethic like everyone here does, and to get the job done, but you still have to, follow up. But
Right.
sure, you can ask questions and give them the information that they need in order to fill the position. So you're involved, but not too involved by micromanaging them.
Right? Yeah, nobody likes a micromanager. And I don't understand how people would like to micromanage. I mean, are you kidding
it takes
me?
too much time.
Like that sounds terrible.
Like if I have to micromanage you, I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah, like
Just
that.
do your job.
Please,
Yes.
please. I'm a macro manager, not
There
a
we go. Big
micromanager.
picture guy.
Yeah, big picture guy. Yeah. Sarah, any that you stand out to? Anything you want to add, or should we just move on?
Heather kind of brought it up, trusting people. And I think the trust goes both ways. And ideally, if you're hitting on a lot of the things that we've talked about, there should be a level of trust between whether you're the manager or the employee. There should be a level of trust between the two of you, having each other's backs, and all of the things that we have talked about so far feed into that. Having empathy, having communication or good communication, open doors, all that stuff. But it's not just about you can't just expect that trust. You have to earn that trust on both levels.
Building relationships.
Yes. So I think all of the things that we've said feed into, how you create that trust. But, supporting each other that's a huge thing that we're all about here, whether it's the wins or the bad days or whatever. We're big on support. And then coming back around to, bringing that into communication. When you feel supported, when you feel safe, when you feel appreciated, you're always going to do more than what's expected. And you're going to feel more comfortable communicating. You're going to feel, whether it's the good things or the bad things. And in particular, it's the bad things that are typically harder to communicate. So I think, wrapping it all in a nice little bow, it does boil down to trust, communication, empathy, and just having each other's backs. I mean, it's pretty simple. Right.
No, I agree. And, trust goes both ways. But I think if you implement some or all of these things that we talked about, you're going to go a long way, not even professionally, but personally as well.
Absolutely.
Sarah, I think we've hit a lot today.
Yep.
Talked a lot, employee to manager, manager, employee. We talked about building trust. We talked about team building. So why don't we just go around the table real quick? Your top tip for effective communication to wrap this up.
Don't talk to me before coffee unless you're bringing me coffee.
Oh,
Yeah.
There we go. Wow. Well, useful.
I'm very, very easy.
Heather, how about you?
I'd probably say open door policy. Don't be able to be asked questions and be able to have empathy and answer questions that maybe you might know something, but they don't.
Right.
Yep.
Kind of similar, I would say, like maybe approach me the way you would like to be approached. And then,
Golden rule.
yeah, let's build from there.
Yeah.
Love it.
For me, I think it's going to be having empathy and also and really establishing your goals and being an optimist. So I'm going to have 3 final tips here.
Naturally.
But I think if you combine all these different tips together, you're going to be able to succeed in life. So anyways, appreciate you guys coming out today. This is awesome.
Yeah,
so that wraps it up for the Malice Cast, episode 10 about communication. Appreciate you guys joining us today. Make sure to go out and like and subscribe to this channel as well as our pages on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. This has been the Malice Cast. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Malice Cast, the official podcast of Malice HR. Don't forget to subscribe now to Malice TV, available on YouTube, and we'll see you on our next Malice Cast.
But I sing one more song before I go away.